Welcome, everybody. This is Rick DiClemente, and this is episode 122 of Astrology Unplugged. Tonight, I have a special guest, and before I get to it, I wanted to wrap up a couple of things happening astrologically, and then we'll be getting to Cathy. I'll introduce her in just a second. Two things are happening, and of course, you notice in the world, all kind of things are happening like crazy. I wanted to point this out last week talking about Eris, and I forgot to. It's very important to notice that we've been talking a lot about the plus side and the minus side of Eris. When you take a look at the shadow side of Eris, that will explain to you a lot of what's gone on the last 5 years. Because Eris is about, I'm tired of things being the way they are. I'm tired of being an underdog. I'm tired of being not counted. I'm going to raise hell. I'm going to do what I got to do. I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to break the traditions so that I am heard. So that explains, and I'm going to talk a lot more about this. This is a very big deal. That explains the positive rise of people that want to be counted. It also explains why we've had the Tea Party, why we've had the Trump movement, and why anything goes with Trump. This is why. It's the negative side. Now, there is a proper way to use Eris, but the point is about Eris, where she differs from others, he doesn't care what rules she has to break. He doesn't care. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're feared here in Western PA of people in the back of pickup trucks with their beer and their shotguns. Anyhow. So there's a lot to talk about how it's equated to the Trump movement and also the flip side. So there's a lot to say. The second thing I think is even more important. Now, I have been underground for 5 years. I don't even know how to explain it. But Cathy and I go way back, and we've been analyzing the planets inch by inch for many, many years, 40 years. About 5 years ago, I kind of lost track, and I got bored because I couldn't say anything except Pluto, 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 and they got really tired talking about it, but I couldn't figure it out. I sensed it may have been Eris. Eris was new, 2005. She was new. We didn't know enough yet. Now I'm convinced that she is the head planet causing all the stir, and I'm also convinced of something else. It also helps when you're watching your own chart. I am 4 days away from Neptune hitting my Mercury. That's a very big, major transit. 4 days away. When those two planets line up, you're talking about capital intuition, all the letters capitalized. I'm now convinced, this is my opinion, I don't make these opinions very readily. I'm now convinced that they are here to help us. I don't know who they are, but this coming of age of Eris, she couldn't have come out at a worse time. She couldn't have come out at a better time. And she came out at a time that's perfect. As we knew what happened, we knew this would happen. We didn't know why. Eris is here at the perfect time, raising hell. She's also raising Cain. But I think that Eris is very symbolic of spirit in its many different manifestations, being here because they're watching us, they're monitoring us, they care about us, they're intervening for those of us that can hear, and I think this is a real big deal. I'll get into that stuff later. But with no further ado, I want to introduce you to our guest, Cathy Pagano, coming us from Rhode Island tonight. Cathy was with us in June of 2017, talking about the women's rise. Welcome, Cathy.
Hi, how are you, everybody?
Oh, it's so good to have you. Cathy and I go way back, at least 10, 12 years or so. Cathy is a very fine astrologer. She is an archetypal astrologer, much like I am. She is a Jungian psychologist. She is a master with the women's issues. I mean, she's been writing about women's issues for a long time before it became rather popular, let's say, at least 25, 30 years. But tonight, the specialty, which we want to draw upon with Cathy, and she's really good just because I call upon her myself, is dreams. How the dreams are reflected in the collective, how they're reflected in your personal dreams. And I'm just going to give it to you, let you take over. I'll have some questions for you as we go along, and I'm going to welcome you. And I also think that it's not a coincidence that you're talking to the collective tonight about dreams. So how do dreams fit into all this stuff we're going through, Cathy?
Well, first of all, dreams come from, the feminine brain, the imaginal brain, right? When our ego shuts off, when our left brain shuts off. And just like astrology gives us the blueprint of our life, dreams fill in the particulars, I think. And of course, it's about the rise of the feminine. Carl Jung was one of the first psychologists to really honor the feminine. And it's, because in our culture, it's the unconscious. And he gave voice to the unconscious. And so dream work is really about paying attention to the things we know on that unconscious level. And that come to us in symbolic language. And that's the most important thing you can know about dream work. It speaks to us in a language that we've forgotten. I always like to say that this was the language before the Tower of Babel. Everybody understood the imaginal world, okay? And supposedly we lived more in touch with that right brain energy. The anthropologists, maybe, or I guess that's who they are. They could be a different title for them. They talked about participation mystique. The ego, people's egos were different 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. And ours has certainly been solidified and hardened by the Enlightenment, which our friend Tracy and Carolyn Casey and different people have called the Endarkenment, because we went all the way into the other side of things, and we've lost touch with ourselves.
How were the egos different?
Well, I don't think, at least according to Jung, they were much more open to the spirit world, the unconscious, so they weren't as solidified. Like right now, we grew up and we're taught this is reality, only the material world. From my background in religion, I like to tell people we are the Antichrist. If you're Christian, okay, our society is Antichrist. It's not a person, it's our whole culture, because we're against Christ consciousness. As a culture, we don't believe in spirit. I mean, people do, okay, but on a whole, our culture says, no, the material world is it. It's the big thing. And that is anti-Christ, against Christ consciousness. Because Christ consciousness says, guess what? You're all spirits. You're living in a body and you're having a human experience, but you're really spiritual. So we've come to that point in our culture where we're in Antichrist time, I think. And we need to unlearn those things. And I think that's what the big conjunction next year could do. There's a big, I don't know if you've all been talking about it, but there's a big 2 or 3 different conjunctions in Capricorn next year. 3 cycles are ending and 3 cycles are beginning. Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, and Saturn,
and Pluto return.
Pardon me?
And the Pluto return a few years later.
The Pluto return of North of America. We have been at war almost the whole time we've been a country. And of course, we're the biggest, we are, the corporate state. We were founded by a corporation, the East Indian Trading Company. That's who the Boston Tea Party was against, and so we're back, we're going to be facing that, obviously. And at least from my reading, they say that usually the Pluto return is the end of empire. And
I don't think so.
And I think Eros is really interesting because you look at it and basically she said, who's the fairest? And of course it was a patriarchal story. So they made the goddesses look, bitchy and twitchy. But, basically she said to the men, is power, domination or love, what's important. And none of them would choose. None of them would choose. So they got Paris, who was just a guy. He was a shepherd. He was the son of the king of Troy, which is near Istanbul, to choose, and he chose love. Okay, and all the rest of the men decided that was, we have to go to war for that. And we've been at war for thousands of years, and America is, such a warmonger. And so it would be interesting to see what happens after this, because lots of different people related to Eros in different ways. But as we've said, Eros is the goddess of discord, and discord means to go against the core, the heart. So when you go against the heart, she's like the Furies. The Furies in Greek mythology chased you if you went against the mother. If you went against the feminine, the Furies would come after you. And so very much like the Furies, Eros is saying, if you're going against the heart of things, if you're going against life, I'm going to come and get you. And of course, that causes lots of disruption with the male leaders, because they want to own the feminine. They don't want it to be free to love on its own, right?
Right.
So this is all about talking symbolically. I would say the most fun you can have is to live an imaginal life, and that means that the dreams that you have, walk with them. Take them with you every day. When I was at the Jung Institute, I was about 30, and my therapist and everybody would say, "Oh, you have to be in the second half of life." And I said to my therapist one day, "Maybe I'm only going to grow to be 60. Maybe I won't live. Maybe I already am in my second half of life. How do you know?" But I was kind of shy, and I was insecure about things. But I would dream about lionesses, and so I decided that I was going to walk around Zurich, Switzerland, because I used to walk around with my head down. Even though I was a mom of 3 and then 4 children, I had a Swiss surprise while I was there. And I would walk around and I would imagine that my lionesses were with me. And in about a month, my personality had totally changed. I was talking in class. I was looking up. I was talking back to my husband. I was doing all sorts of things. And that's what happens when you live the imaginal life, the symbolic life, when you bring it in. It's not like living in a fantasy world. It's about bringing the realm of the imagination into our world so that you change your life. So
what is it that happens that's so strong when we open to imagination?
Well, we're not stuck. It's like we get into a bigger story, right? Like the story of
the West thinks the imagination is worthless. The West considers it worthless. Imagination.
Yeah. The imagination is like for children. But it's so interesting because look what the mass media has done. It has colonized our imagination. Okay? Nobody can sit down for 10 minutes when you're out and you watch people. No, they can't even be off their phone for 10 minutes, right? And so when you begin to meditate, like I didn't watch TV for years. And then somebody said, "Oh, with all the tariffs, if you're going to get a TV, get one now because price is going to go up." So I got a cheap TV, one of those Roku where you stream things. And when I watch TV, if I go into meditation, for those TV images are the first things that pop up. Mm-hmm. And then once I get rid of them, then I can go deeper. And so it's, shamanic techniques take you into the imagination and you work with the imagination. Carl Jung called it active imagination. He'd say, if you have a dream and you don't quite know what it meant, go back into the dream when you're conscious. Do a waking connection to the dream and see what your imagination brings up. And often the first thing you go, the first few times you do, you go, "I'm just making that up." No, that's what your imagination is telling you. The more you work with it, the more you will get deeper with it. I just started rereading an old book. You can see like half the book is gone. It fell out, but I have it. The Sea Priestess by Dion Fortune. You know, back the old occultists back in the beginning of the 20th century. You know, basically they were saying you have to build a thought form on the astral plane. And my son was here, and he was looking at some of my books, and he pulled a book out about the something of the Western world, the secret traditions. And basically, it's about the imagination. This is the big secret that everybody, you know, and that's what we're talking about. You have to get your feeling. You know, if you want to change things and change the quantum field, you have to not just imagine it, you have to feel it. Well, like children. Jesus said you have to become like children to enter the kingdom of heaven. So if you ever watch little kids playing pirate or whatever they're playing, or trucks, they are so into it. And so part of it was when I walked around Zurich with my lionesses, I had to get into it. I had to like believe it. Right? And that's how you use the imagination to change your world. You have to believe it, but not in a like scatterbrain crazy way, like, oh, I'm Jesus reincarnated, and you know, that's not the truth. But we all have part of him in us, I'm sure, just as we have atoms and stardust from everything else. But it's about being grounded, but choosing to see, oh, what's my power animal? Let me walk with it. Or, oh, I'm going to go talk to the trees. What do they have to say to me? Mm-hmm. Right? So dreams are just sort of the more spontaneous way we connect to that greater imagination. And the thing is that we have to realize that symbols aren't like signs. You don't say, oh, this means this. You say, this points to this. So if you have a dream that your car breaks down, okay, first of all, you have to go, well, what is a car? It gets me from place to place on a deeper symbolic level. It's like the chariot in the tarot deck. It takes us to our goals. You know, it's our will, and, you know, we're focused and stuff. And, you know, Jung would say, go check your car, make sure it isn't breaking. But it's saying, in what way are your goals not working? In what way is the vehicle that takes you towards your goal, where is it breaking down?
Mm-hmm. Well, you're amazing the way you can translate a dream so quickly. I had the most marvelous friend who just died in his 70s. He was an art professor, and he was a very good abstract artist. And his name was Jake. And he would take you to his paintings, like at his gallery, and he's just a lively, perfect Gemini archetype. He was a trickster, always playing tricks. He would take you up to the painting with him, and he'd say, you see here? He would whisper, say, you see here? And I go, yeah, look over there. Oh, what's that say? What's that say? I said, I don't know. He said, listen. And next thing you know, you're in the painting, and the whole thing's come to life, and he's poking you in the sides and laughing hysterically. But he was really the personification of exactly what you're talking about. And when you visited his kids who grew up with no television, all these kids ended up being flamboyant and very open and extroverted and very artistic. It was a wonderful thing to see. So I can identify with what you're saying here. Don't you think modern man is yearning to get back to that?
Yeah, I think so. Because we live in a meaningless culture, basically. And I think that if we were satisfied, we wouldn't constantly be looking for new adventures or new excitement. It's like if you go to a movie, do you come home and put on TV right away? The movie obviously didn't feed you. Yeah. Last night, I got tricked. This is the second time in 2 years I went to see a ballet. When I was younger, when I was first married back in the 70s, I lived in New York City. And I got to see Rudolph Nureyev and Margot Fonteyn and Dame Judith Anderson with the Alvin Ailey. These beautiful dancers and wonderful dancing. And I went to this thing last night. It was called From Bach to Bowie. And it was the most boring ballet I have ever seen. And my friend who I went with used to be a dancer, and I went, I looked at her and I said, I really don't like this. She goes, either did I. I went, thank you. Because, everybody's clapping and going, woo, it's so great. It was just mechanical. There was nothing that pulled your heart. And so we have a lot of dead culture, I think.
Well, I think you're right.
And so, yeah, we look for meaning. That's a depth.
TV, everybody's always smiling. You turn it on and everybody's always smiling. Every product, they're smiling. And you're brainwashed and thinking everything's okay. And they're really, you go to people's homes and they're watching while they're talking to you. Well, it's scary. I mean, how do you get out of such a thing?
Well, I was talking to my sister today, and she was telling me how her boss at Walt Disney, the lawyer, my sister is, ragging on her because they're giving her a really crummy new office. And she said, you're too nice. And I said, Marilyn, do you know what nice originally meant? Do any of you know what the word nice originally meant? Stupid and inconsequential. So when we try to be nice, actually, we're trying to be stupid and inconsequential and not worth paying attention to.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. Isn't
it? I love etymology. Look up what words mean. It's fascinating. It's fascinating because we've lost so much touch with the deeper meanings. The other languages, like in German, when I lived in Switzerland, the German words were really long, but they'd mean, the road that goes around the bend and over the bridge. But it would just be one word, right? We don't have words like that in English.
I see.
Right? So we don't, and because we are the most industrial country, we were born during the Industrial Revolution. We were founded by corporations. We were, shunted in, right when the Enlightenment, the Endarkenment, and left brain, rational, make it on your own, be an individual. So I think and then we've created ugliness in our country and all over the world.
We're in a lot of trouble because we've never really respected rites of passages like the American Indian does. And that's what you have to bank upon coming into a Pluto return. You can't have a Pluto return. Pluto was here. It's 250 some years later. Pluto's gone all the way around, and it's coming back. And when it comes back, it wants to wrap up things in a deep, meaningful way. And as Rudyard would say, the ability for us to restart and replant a new seed is directly related to how well we sew up the last cycle. And you don't see anything about that in America except the next car commercial, the next car commercial, the next burger commercial. It just blows us away, and it just blows a storm over top of our imagination to where there's, how many people would give up their Thursday evening to click on this and hear somebody talk about this stuff when they could be watching their sitcom? It's really, really frightening.
Well, maybe that's what we should all do. Let's all devise rituals to say, goodbye, patriarchy. We wish you well. We loved you. There were certain things about you that really rocked and other things suck. And so we're gonna ritualize your death so that out of the compost of what you are, something new will arise.
It is the patriarchy because that's about control. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's a hierarchical, and it's mostly imbalanced. It's mostly because it's not that the masculine energy of focus and will is bad. It's that's the only thing we value, and we make the feminine connectedness and intuition be subservient to that. Like years ago when I was a single mom and had 4 kids and had no money because my ex-husband didn't ever work much, even though he's a priest, an Episcopal priest and a therapist. And he would, and some of my newer friends that I made friends with after I got divorced would say, with your knowledge of symbolism, you should get a job in advertising. And I said, I would never use my knowledge to sell people junk that they don't need. My kids will deal with it, okay? And I would. I tell my kids, guess what? We don't have any money, but you have me. And they all grew up, and 3 sons are out making money and doing fine, and just me and my daughter are the ones who don't have a lot of money, but the boys take care of us when we need it.
Can I move in with you?
Pardon me?
Can I move in with you?
Can you come live with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. You were telling that story. It reminded me of the time I was in Italy, and I went to the bank, and the door was locked, and it was like 2:30, 1 o'clock, and all the people sitting in the cafes around started laughing at me. Americano, right? I kept saying, "What time's it open?" And they'd say, "Whenever he opens." And they're laughing because I'm freaking out because I'm watching the clock. Got to get the bank open again. And they're like, "Hey, relax, get some wine, relax."
Right. Well, because we're all immigrants, so we're uprooted. We aren't rooted in the deepness of the earth, right? The Native Americans said, when you white people have buried many generations of your people here, then you will know what we know, and you will love the earth. And so that's why Europeans and Africans and Asians, I think they have it more together because they do have their ancient traditions. Even if the kids are modern and they don't go to church anymore, there's still the traditions, and they do have the initiations. Like the Mexicans have the thing for the girls when they all get dressed up at 15 or whatever, or when you get your period, or, so only modern Americans don't. And because my grandparents, both sets, were immigrants, I grew up without anything. So, of course, that's why I went totally back into the unconscious and symbolic life, because it was like, this can't be all there is. Come on.
Well, what does the modern person do to start making that relinkage?
Well, I think you go in, and the only way that you can, because we have it all within us. And so when you turn within and you pay attention to what's going on inside yourself, that's why dreams are so important. They tell you how you're using your energy. If anybody wants to ask questions, please hop on and ask. And if you have a dream you'd like me to work with, I would love to do that, because I think by example is the best way.
So you can, Suzanne Aver is ready to go. Suzanne, tilt your camera down, please. Suzanne, you're on with Cathy. Go ahead.
Hi, Cathy. Thank you. I had a disturbing dream last night.
Okay, you know what? I can't hear you very well, so I'm going to put on my earphones.
Okay.
Nope, wrong ones.
You guys are on tablets. You need to get up close to the tablet.
Okay, 1 sec. They were the wrong earphones. Even all the earphones are different. You can't even just use one set. Now they all have different things.
I'm on my laptop, and I got my keyboard up under my chin.
Exactly.
So can't get
You sound better now.
Okay.
What's your question?
Okay, I can't hear you.
I had a disturbing dream, and parts of it are really redundant. I get the same, one part of it I get replayed over in dreams for months and months.
Okay.
And that part had to do with driving and trying to find a parking spot to get to where I need to go. And I'm in a city I don't recognize, and I park the car and I can never find it again. Then it's going to get dark, and I'm wandering through strange areas in the dark by myself. This is a real repetitive type dream that I have. The new part to last night's version, I wound up in, of all places, Oklahoma, and here comes a giant snake, and I find I'm holding a shotgun, but there's no bullets. I can't shoot the snake. So it comes close enough, I have to beat it to death with the stock of the shotgun.
Okay.
I have no clue.
Well, what's your go with this one?
Well, first of all, we have recurring dreams because it's an issue that needs to be faced. Okay? And so we keep having it. It switches a little. It shows us if we've done a little work on the issue or not. Do you know what I mean? So once again, we talked about cars, right? And so are you trying to figure out where you're going, what your purpose is, how you have to deal with what you want to do next in your life?
Yeah, pretty much my whole life.
Okay. Well, because, getting a job in our culture is not a life. Okay. And so anybody who's at all conscious is always saying, why am I really here? And I think I'm just going to give you my personal thing. We're here for now, whatever that is. We think we have to do something terrific and specific. Maybe there'll be a disaster and you will help save people. And that's why you're here. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I think that we're here to get conscious. Okay, so if there's nothing else that you do in your whole life but become a conscious human being, you've hit the jackpot. I call us the 1%ers of consciousness. Now, if we could just get the 1%ers of money to give us some of their money, we could do good things with it. But we are the 1%ers of consciousness, right? So anyway, here you are, and you get to Oklahoma. Is there anything about Oklahoma that you have an association with?
No, I've driven cross country a few times, but that's about it.
What about Oklahoma, where the winds come creeping down the bend? Da, 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 da. What do you think of Oklahoma?
It's nice. It's kind of flat. I don't know.
It's a big open space.
Yeah, it's a big open space.
You're a hell of an artist, and you got a big open canvas.
True.
You get to Oklahoma, what do? You see a snake. Why do you think you had to kill it?
Oh, it was coming towards me and two other people.
Okay.
And I was the only one holding a weapon. I was very surprised to see I had a shotgun because I'm very anti-gun. And then in the dream, I actually knew how to use it.
Okay.
There were no bullets.
Well, guns, like knives, are things where we project out onto somebody else. Bullets are projectiles, just like a bow and an arrow, you project, right? And so, we could say they're very Martian, right? They go along with Mars, if you will. Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything in your chart affecting your Mars right now, but to have a gun and to aim it means that you're going to project something with your thoughts, perhaps. Onto something else, right? Just like a sword or a knife represents thinking. So in a way, guns, you could say, and this is what you do, you play with it. You go, what the heck is a gun? Okay, and what is it, and what do you do with it? And you work it, okay? That's part of the symbol of learning.
What's the part that keeps repeating, Susan?
Oh, just various dreams where I'm in a car in various cities, going through weird neighborhoods I don't know.
You can't park. You can't find your car.
Usually a school. I'm supposed to be somewhere. I'm supposed to substitute or I'm supposed to something. And I can't get there. And if I can get there, I can't get my car again because now everything has changed when I walk out. But now it's sunset and I don't even know how to walk home from there. I mean, it's like really being lost.
Yeah. So it's about I'm lost, basically. That's the initial setup. So when you look at a dream, you can look at it like a play. When you were in English class and they said, let's look at a play and diagnose it. So you look at the initial situation. I'm driving my car. I'm trying to figure out where my goals are, and I keep getting lost. And then you say, well, what's the action? And you look at the action. And you say, the only thing in a dream you can really say and do anything about changing is you. Because you in the dream is your ego. It represents the part of you that's listening to me, the awake part. But all the rest, at least in Jungian terms and a few other types of dream work, is energies in you. So they're just a given. So the given is that things keep shifting on you as you try to find your way towards either learning or teaching something. And they keep shifting. So they take you, and so then it says, well, what's the crisis? That's the next thing. The crisis is all of a sudden you're someplace else. You're in Oklahoma, right? And then the resolution is that the snake is coming and that you beat it to death. Now, I would just say that your ego attitude needs to have an adjustment because Snakes are the goddess's animal of wisdom.
Oh,
Okay, they're the kundalini that goes up and down our spine. They're the Shakti energy. In ancient Crete, the goddess was worshipped with snakes. Originally, the goddess was in charge of the pythons or the pythoness. After a while, Apollo took it over, but it's prophetic. Snakes can figure out what the weather is and what's going on. And because of Christianity, we've made it evil, the snake in the garden. But the snake is the goddess's animal, and it's the wisdom aspect of the goddess, the instinctual wisdom. So your instincts were coming to meet you, and your ego freaked out and killed it.
One of the things I was thinking about this, I think that's excellent. I've had the same type of dreams, Susan. What I've found is it happens because I keep thinking there is a path that I have to find. And I realize if there's a path there, then it can't be my path because someone's already worn it out. It's their path.
right.
That's what I find is we trick ourselves into thinking that there's a specific path out there, but maybe there's not. I want to move on. Thank you, Susan. Thank you for your question.
Wait. I want to say one thing. So, Susan, think about what your instincts are trying to lead you to. Because you have made this transition. You've gotten into this new place, Oklahoma, whether it's the wind coming through the plains and you get out and you sing it or a bit, or it's just a wide open space. But you're in sort of like the bread, where it's nurturing. Isn't Oklahoma part of the breadbasket of America or whatever? So you're in a place that's very fertile. And the snake, the instinctual nature is coming at you. So I would say if you have this dream again and a snake comes to you, don't kill it. Okay? What you have to do is say, I have to remember not to be afraid of snakes. I have to remember not to be afraid of snakes. And then when you dream it, you will go, oh, I'm remembering. And you'll wake up in your dream. Okay? And you'll be in a lucid dream. Because
that makes a lot of sense.
During the day, you're going, I can't be afraid of snakes anymore. I need to get in touch with my snaky energy. So I would say to you, belly dance a little, move around like a snake. Snakes aren't really gooey. My daughter was never afraid of any animals, and my mother was totally afraid. She would vacuum spiders in the middle of the night. I'd wake up to the sound of a vacuum cleaner, and she'd be cleaning spiders off the wall. And so I thought, I won't do that to my kids. And my daughter loves animals. And she would make me touch everything. And snakes are very dry. They're not scary. They're not slimy. So, if a snake comes to you, this is the goddess in her most instinctual form coming to you.
Even if it's a poisonous snake?
You don't know if it's poisonous or not.
Not poisonous.
Do you know what I mean? You don't know if it's poisonous. You're just afraid of snakes. Did it rattle?
Yeah, I want to move on to Suzanne's question so we can all have a turn. Thank you, Susan.
Okay.
Suzanne, you are with Cathy.
Hi, Suzanne.
Cathy. Hi. I had this really weird dream after I got back from the DNC. I was there to support Bernie Sanders, and Alan Goodman had died a month earlier. But anyway, I had this dream when I got back, and it's a recurrent dream where a man is reading to me from a book. And in the dream, he was telling me that we're learning, humanity's learning, you're here for a reason. And I did a lucid part, and I came in and I said, no, you are crazy. We are not raising our consciousness. I just got back from the DNC, and I saw what happened I see how things are. And he said, no, just calm down. He said, I want you to know that everything is math. And then he showed me that matrix kind of computer language that kind of, I knew kind of what it was before the dream, but I didn't know everything was math. And so the dream segued into like a view into a room that looked like the Last Supper, where there's long wooden tables, and there were like about 4 people there. I didn't know who they were. And I sat down, And through the kitchen where they cook the food or serve it, this gypsy, really beautiful gypsy younger woman came flying very gently into the room. And on top of her was a full-length black swan. And I didn't know black swans existed in my conscious life. And the black swan was either sickly looking or tired. And the swan would come around her flying, and we would just kind of gently, pet the swan. But it wasn't until later somebody told me to look up the black swan theory that might be attached to the dream, that something unexpected could happen. People didn't see it coming. And I think that dream was kind of prophetic that Trump would be, elected. But that dream continues in my life because I started this live stream with Mary Trump. I channel her. And she's trying to soften everything, like the animosity that Trump supporters might have with Democrats and all of that. And the sickness of the black swan, I think, is not only Trump and what he brings to our sickness. He's like an example of our sickness in society. But, it's not through animosity that these things can be moved through. It's through caring and love and understanding. And so that dream, when I remember a dream, there's always a reason. There's so many dreams I just can't remember bits and pieces, but certain dreams, they're like crystal clear. And so that dream I thought would be interesting to bring up because Trump usually gets, he becomes part of the conversation. And in no way am I a Trump supporter. But about 6 months or 8 months after I had that dream, I was checking in to see what CNN was doing. I don't really trust them completely, but I was checking in, and I went to the science part, and it told me exactly what the man with the book told me, that scientists are saying that fundamentally everything is math, and that we live in a matrix. And I think he was showing me that computer language because that was like a symbol of the matrix. And so I just wanted to share that dream, the black swan.
You did a great job. That's exactly what you need to do with the dreams, is to work it and to say, how does it, see, a dream is like an alternative story. It's the story your soul is telling you.
Yeah.
Right? And I was just listening to Greg Braden. Do you know who he is? He's some scientist, mathematician, mystic.
No.
And he was saying, he did a whole series of shows. I sort of skipped some of them. And but at the end, he said, we're living in a simulation. And that's the whole idea of, we're spiritual beings having a physical. But he said, because we're living in a simulation, we can change things. So I was sitting there saying, I'm going to change my avatar. Now, I don't need a chubby avatar anymore. I want a thinner one. That's in shape.
But what I learned from that dream, Cathy, and this is my only interpretation, of course, the dreamer always owns the dream, right?
Right.
So it's like, well, Trump and that whole situation with people being a certain way, we really need that to move forward. It's all part of the equation or the matrix or whatever. But I don't know who that man is in my dream. He's been in my dream since I was a kid. He's usually sitting down in a chair, and he gives me the vibe. It's not Edgar Cayce. He gives me the vibe of a very loving type of individual. And then he opens the book and he starts reading to me, and I'm just laying there listening to it, And so that has been with me ever since I was really a young child.
Well, he's probably one of your inner guides. For a woman, okay, our job is to become focused and to use our will. For a man, it's to become spiritual. When you think of the contrasexual, on the outside, we're women, so our inner masculine. Okay. And just for a man, his inner feminine, it leads him to spirituality. So this is a guide. He's been with you for your whole life. And he's the spiritual aspect of you too, and the more focused one, you could say, right? He could be Merlin. When I was learning mediumship, our teacher said, ask for these 7 guides, and one was called the Doctor of Philosophy. You could say he's your Doctor of Philosophy, rather than your healer, whatever. We have all these different guides in us. And so he's trying to say, part of it is, yes, we do. This is the end of a cycle, a Pluto cycle. We have to see who, the mucky part of our society. Now, I'm old, so since the 70s I've seen it, but most people haven't, right? Mm-hmm. So now he's performing a really good service. He's bringing up issues that we need to face. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard thing to do, to be despised or loved or whatever it is that he is. But we need that. And also, I think America has been exceptional for too long, and he's bringing us down a peg. After this, we will be able to join the world as an equal rather than we're better than you. And so Trump is doing us a service. He's saying America is no better than any other country. And as a matter of fact, maybe we're even worse because we don't have those deep roots.
Yeah, and not to dominate the conversation, but what you said earlier about Americans in particular, they don't have the rootedness, and we don't have like the vision quest for like the big developmental stages that we go through. I think that's part of the whole equation with the American, we just don't have a soul, really. We don't have that, what soul.
That's right.
So, I think it's important. And I think that the gang, the kids, I worked with adolescents, and the kids who form gangs, they're just trying to form a ritual for themselves.
That makes sense.
When it's not,
and find a family.
The teenage drinking and all of that, they're just trying to do it themselves. So
I think that's
everything
part of
that you've shared tonight, Cathy.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing, because that is a wonderful dream. Part of us is, if we're all one, then they're our shadow. This is our shadow. Okay. And do you get mad at your shadow, or do you just look at it and bring it into the light? Right.
Right.
Michael Fronte, you bring it into the light, the vampires. Okay. And so, we need to stop, we need to be bigger than the people who are in fear. If we're not afraid of them, then we don't have to hate them. Fear and hate go together.
I think Suzanne, what you said is really good in the sense we don't have a soul, and I think that's part of the Eris revolution. That's for men also. I'm saying to the world, I do have a soul. It needs to be heard. It needs to be cherished. It needs to be respected, just like you do. So I think a lot of us are yearning for that ritualized part. I don't know how it works with you, Cathy, because I know you're a Taurus, and I really don't understand. When I was writing the chapter on Taurus, it just kept coming back all the time. Anchored, get anchored, get anchored, get anchored. What does that impulse do to you, since you're an archetypal astrologer? What is that impulse about, getting anchored?
Being grounded. It's being totally incarnated. Right? The feminine is incarnational. The masculine is transcendent. That's why all of our religions that are patriarchal say the earth is not any good. Let's leave the earth because heaven's going to be better. And the goddess religion says it's all happening here, babe. Come on down. If Mary hadn't been there, Jesus wouldn't. I always wondered if Mary was really the Christ, because she incarnated the Christ, right? They're finally putting out the movie about Mary Magdalene this weekend. It was supposed to come out 2 years ago, and I think they're finally putting it out. I don't know how good it is, and I don't really know if I want to watch a Jesus movie anymore. We used to watch Franco Zeffirelli's 8-night Jesus of Nazareth for Easter, things like that. But, it's incarnational. And so we want to bring the spirit in. And isn't that what Taurus is? We say the spirit is here in the earth. It's right here. It's right now. It's like the story of Dame Ragnall, Lady Sovereignty. You have to marry the earth, and we have to become stewards of the earth. So we need a new story about the earth. Since the Industrial Revolution and since the Enlightenment, the earth is dead matter, and we've raped and pillaged it, right? Now, that's an old story. It's like the earth, we can use her up, and she'll always provide. Now we know, no, that's not working for us anymore. So now we have to realize that we're part of the earth, and we have to go out and maybe talk to the trees in our neighborhood and say, what do you need from me? Right? And see, and if we're the channel, what do you need from us? And instead of fighting people and getting angry about people who are so afraid that that they have to, they have to dig for oil in Yosemite or whatever. Do you know what I mean? What we have to remember is that that every time President Trump does something that the rest of us think is like, this is going to wreck the earth, people take him to court and he loses. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So we're giving way too much attention. Like, I always thought, what would happen if the news just ignored him for a month and didn't go to any of the White House things? Nobody reported on him.
No Twitter.
And all they did was report on what good things were happening in the world.
Oh my God.
It would turn people's imaginations around. It would turn around the depression that so many people are feeling. Because what we have to do is overwhelming, but we're entering, what are they calling it? You know how each epic is called something, the Pliocene epic and this epic, of time, geological time. They're calling this a name that means the human time, because it's up to us to consciously evolve. So anyway, to get back to dreams, the way you consciously evolve yourself is to pay attention to what your soul's saying, and you can find that out through your dream work. Okay, the Talmud says a dream uninterpreted is like a letter from God that you don't open. And the fact that we all dream must mean something. Okay, science goes, no, it's just electrons, but it's symbolic language. And if it just was the same thing, we'd all have the same dream every night, right?
If you watch your dreams for years, okay, if you become very good at interpreting them, do you get to the point where you're convinced that the most important dreams are the ones coming to the fore? It seems so random, but if you were experienced, do you really get the sense that the most important part of the brain is trying to get that message out?
Well, the ones we remember are the ones we need to. Like, sometimes you don't remember the dream until you can. Okay, if you really pay attention to your dreams for years, you'll be working on dreams and you'll be getting it. And then all of a sudden you run into a period of time where you don't quite get the dreams. And the only way I could describe it is, it's like, well, I'm kind of dreaming about my house and about people, but it's very weird. It's like you're on drugs and it's not quite really it. And it's because you're shifting gears. And so you're beginning to see life in a different perspective. Right? And so then your dreams will echo that. Part of what you're trying to do with dream work is expand your perspective on things. Because magical things happen. My favorite story is about my mother, who never could remember her dreams. She very rarely slept. She'd be up all night when I was in high school and young. But one day she was out. We were from the East Coast, but my siblings had moved to California, and she was out there visiting them. And I had been getting divorced. I don't know if I was divorced yet or I was about to. And I had this intense dream about I had to get my head cut off for the good of the community. And in the dream, I was saying goodbye to people, and my mother in the dream was crying, and how are you doing this? And then, so anyway, she calls me the next morning and she goes, Cathy, I never remember dreams, but I'm flying home today and I had a dream about decapitated bodies. And so I'm getting insurance. Now there's that materialistic, this is the concrete shit. And I went, Mom, don't worry. It was just about me. You were in my dream. No, I wasn't. The plane could crash and I'm getting this. So, we connect to people in the dream world. It's a magical place. And if you want to bring magic into your life, work on your dreams, because it isn't just about, magic, but it's about connecting to the magic of life.
Anybody else got a dream they want to talk about? Don't be nervous. Don't be shy.
Any questions?
It's our little show.
You know,
Linda, I thought I saw a dream percolating there. Linda, you're with Cathy.
Well, the first thing I want to say is, Cathy, I really admire your work in general. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Second thing, I had forgotten about this, but when you were talking about your mother, you and your mother having the same dream, that happened one time with my mother, my grandmother, and I on the same night. I dreamed that my grandmother had something wrong with her breast, and my mother dreamed the same thing. And my grandmother called my mother that morning and said, "I have to have a mammogram." And so I do think that sometimes dreams are just direct pipelines to between people, like when you're asleep.
Yes.
But the dream this is a strange dream that I don't really often talk about, but I'm a cat fancier. I've always had cats since I was small. And I had one cat for 22 years. And this cat was attracted to me from the beginning. It was like from the day I got it, it was, I got a couple cats in the same day, and I was living with someone, and this was my cat. And so this was always my cat. And maybe 4 years before she died, I was sleeping in the bed, and she always slept by my face. And I had a dream, it felt like a dream, where the cat was talking to me and telling me that she had been sent to me to help me grow and mature spiritually and emotionally, and that she still had things. She was like 17 at that point, and she still had things to teach me, so she couldn't go yet. And that when she died, then her work with me would be done. Mm-hmm. It was one of the most memorable experiences I've ever had. I mean, I've had awake experiences that weren't that vivid to me.
Of course. Well, if you had gone on a vision quest, and a sacred animal would come to you. So, I mean, you and your cat were united, and she was telling you her reason for being there. We have these companions. We have these sacred animals that come to us and are with us. But because we are so cut off from our instincts, okay, as modern Americans are, we don't tend to know that. Another culture might have said, "This is my companion." Look at King Arthur. He had his dog, Cabell. Do you know what I mean? The companion. Heroes and heroines always have their companions. The lion, and especially lions and cats, they always are goddess animals.
Oh yeah, and after I had that dream, one of the things I always ask myself is, what is this particular cat here to teach me? Because some cats aren't like big teachers. They're like
they're playmates.
They're playmates, or they're like children, where what you're supposed to do is learn how to deal with them, and it's about taking on a different role or something. So I just thought that was an interesting experience, and
it's wonderful. Lucky you. You must have been an Egyptian priestess at some point for her to come to you.
I don't know. I'm very lucky, and she was an amazing animal. She was.
What was her name?
Smokey.
Huh?
Smokey.
Smokey. Smokey. Yeah. The other thing I'd like to bring up about what you said is dreams, because they come to us from the right brain. Our right brain picks up information constantly. Okay. So we're constantly having, it's at work. Whereas our left brain shuts out what we don't think, all the things we don't want to, that we don't have time for. So we pick up things. So we can dream about illnesses ahead of time. Okay. Because that's the brain that picks up what's going on in our body, what's going on around us, what's going on with other people. And so, that's why it's so important when you have a dream about, sometimes when we dream about cars breaking down, maybe it's our car, maybe it's our body. Okay. It all depends on, on how you see things, like what your association would be. I don't think I would ever associate my car with my body just because I don't use it that much. You might have a dream about a house. A house is our psychic space. Right? So when you dream about your childhood home, you're looking at the world from that child childhood experience or your parents' view of the world, right? So there's, once again, it's about what's a house, okay? And we live in it and we look at the world through it and we're comfortable in it. It's ourselves. So then you have to translate it into a more symbolic meaning, so that you begin to play with, well, what is this dream telling me? And you walk around the dream and you go, what does it feel like? What do I think it is? What could it be associated? What are my associations to that? Like Suzanne was afraid of snakes, and so she's afraid of her natural instincts. But that doesn't mean that you should kill the snake. Do you know what I mean? It just means, shit, I'm afraid of snakes, and I'm afraid of my own instincts. So then you begin to think, okay, I got to do things differently. Why am I afraid of my instincts? Well, maybe when I was young, I was in my body and I was sexual and I was told you're evil, you're bad. And so you cut yourself off from those instinctual places in yourself.
What was your take in Switzerland at your early age, and you had gone through all the learning about Jung? What did you learn that Jung gave us?
I think he gave us an appreciation of the goddess. He was one of the first psychologists who said the unconscious is feminine. Like Freud said, the unconscious is just where we put all our repressed sexuality. Freud was a cocaine addict, okay? And he grew up in a really repressed, Victorian society. You look at all the different, Jung did okay. I would say if anyone really wants to get into why somebody would get into dreams, Jung's autobiography, Memories, Dreams, and Reflections, is the best book I've ever read on somebody who paid attention to his dreams.
Oh, he's so brilliant. He tells you what it means. This is what it means. Not that, this is what it means.
Well, yes and no, but he studied everything and he was interested in spirituality. The thing that Jung did for us, he wrote that book, Modern Man in Search of His Soul. Okay? Freud said everything was about sex. Adler said everything was about power. Jung said everything is about our soul. That we are a soulless society, that we've taken the Greek gods and we've made them psychological complexes. Okay, because we have killed spirit in the world. And so in many ways, he was the most spiritual of these psychologists. And what he did was he said, become spiritual. He said, people are neurotic because we've lost touch with our soul. Right?
He was quite an astrologer too.
Yeah, he was. He was an astrologer.
Spent a lot of time with it.
Yeah. So,
fabulous story.
But Jung was, read if you want to read about him, don't read anybody else's book about him. I mean, you'll learn facts, and that's okay too, because he wasn't a perfect person, I guess. But read the way he saw his life. That's the fascinating thing. He lived an imaginal world. He lived an imaginal life.
Wow. I read where he, when he was young, he played inside an old silo, which was ceramic, and the roof was eroded, and he went to revisit it in his 80s, I guess. And he sat down in the bottom of that silo with the mud and the rocks, and he wanted to get back to that simple, innocent state that you're at when you're 2 and 3, and you're throwing a rock up and down. And he spent hours in the mud. He's a Taurus, too. He spent hours in the mud throwing the rocks up and down to get back to that state of just simplicity. It's simply in the here and now. I thought that was magnificent.
He's a Leo. Individuation.
That's right. He has a Leo.
Individuation. He said Leo's the sign of individuation. Yeah, he was amazing. And the thing is, his father was a minister, one of those, Germanic type Christians. And his mother was kind of weird and a little psychic. And one of his big dreams, and he Black Elk and St. Francis, he was sick when he was young. And a lot of it was because he had a dream that he that he saw this big cathedral, and God was sitting over it on a throne, and then he took a dump on the cathedral, and he could not admit that God would do that.
Yeah,
And so, because he couldn't articulate it, he got sick. It made him sick. And if you read Black Elk Speaks about the great medicine man, he had this big dream about how he could help the tribe, and he got sick until he told the medicine man, and then the whole tribe acted out his thing. So, there's important dreams that we have that speak to us. They can be prophetic. They can just be neurotic anxiety dreams, like, oh my God, I all of a sudden I'm back in high school and I haven't been to school for the whole semester and it's test time. Or I can't find my locker, or I can't get the locker unlocked. Those are anxiety dreams. You can have dreams from your personal unconscious, which means all the little neurotic things that we worry about and our shadow. But then you can have dreams from the collective unconscious, big dreams. I used to have dreams where I would see star systems shifting. And so I had all these different dreams about constellations changing. One day I had a dream that I saw the Pleiades in the daytime sky. And then all these other constellations were like falling down and apart. So, there's so many types of dreams we can have. And some are prophetic. Some people dream and it happens the next day.
I'm wondering what you are experiencing now, because I've known you back in the days when, let's just say, the women's movement was in its early stages. And it just seemed, I read your stuff for years, it just seemed that you were way ahead of yourself. And it just seems over the years, more and more women have followed, more and more women have become ready. And now there's no comparison.
Yeah.
It's so wide open. You must be feeling kind of a pleasure about that. I mean, it's real exciting.
Well, it is. Back when I first wrote it, I wrote it during my master's thesis, and my two advisors said it should be written in gold ink. But I got divorced the next year, and I had 4 kids. And so when I tried to get it published, the publisher would say to me, "What is it about?" And really it's about the return of the goddess at the changing of the ages, and about Lady Wisdom. It's about wisdom. It's a symbolic study of the woman clothed with the sun, standing on the moon, crowned with stars, giving birth to the new age. And I couldn't explain to her what it was, And so part of it is that, that was back in the 80s, and I couldn't explain it. So I lived it. And then in the 90s, they didn't publish, in the 2000s, they didn't publish goddess books. And now, after this Pluto-Uranus square, now women are doing it, and women are living it. Okay,
it's everywhere.
They're living it, and
exactly
things have changed so much in the last 30 years, and that part's good. And
it has to correlate with what Eris is doing, because she is just having a field day. And
she's saying, who's the most fair? And it's love. And it's people like Alexandria, or whatever her name is, OAC. She's out there. She's a goddess wild woman, the woman who run with the wolves.
What a beauty.
And so are the other 2 young women, the 2 Muslim women. They're speaking truth to power. And the men are freaking out, and so are the patriarchal women.
They are freaking out.
Look at Nancy Pelosi, patriarchal woman. Okay, father's daughters, like Hillary Clinton. All of us are father's daughters, but part of our job is to run away and not be father's daughters anymore. And these young girls aren't. They've already gone beyond it. Perhaps because they've been raised by single moms. I don't know. But, the goddess has returned. I think, I said it in my book, but I think that the image of the woman clothed with the sun is when we saw the picture of Earth from the moonrise. Because the goddess, there's the Earth clothed with the sun, underneath was the moon, all around was the stars. We saw our planet from the moon, and that was the beginning. That's that back in 1969. I saw that. We saw the men land on the moon. And after that, all the books on the return of the goddess started coming out. And really and truly, most of the really good books about the goddess are still from that time, from the 70s and 80s. Clarissa Estes in the 90s, Women Who Run with the Wolves. But after that, Starhawk couldn't even get a book published.
Mm.
The publishers just shut down the goddess movement.
Hmm.
And
They're not going to do it now. Suzanne, go ahead, dear.
Okay. Cathy, what you were saying earlier in the show about how we're moving into more of a right-brained way of being, more of the feminine. Way back in the late 90s, I believe I was in Barnes and Noble and happened to pick up a book, and that's when the internet just started to get really popular.
Mm-hmm.
There was a researcher who felt that
the goddess in the alphabet.
What was that?
The goddess in the alphabet?
Maybe, but what he was talking about was the new technology that we have where we're seeing these videos and everything's visual. Yeah. Maybe that was it. Yeah.
He was a brain surgeon.
It really struck me. I said, oh my gosh, I love this research.
I used his research in my book, but the alphabet, the goddess in the alphabet and the goddess one. But yeah, he said, because we are using images more, we are becoming more right brain. And that doesn't mean we get rid of the left brain. But Albert Einstein said, we have made the servant the master. Okay, so this image of Lady Wisdom, of Sophia, she stands on the moon. So we have to have our foundation in the right brain imagination. And then we use our left brain rationality, the clothed with the sun part, to understand what that is, what that means.
Yeah, and I really think that this particular move to the right brain, Americans need it more than a lot of other countries. I've worked with people from Mexico as an art therapist, and I've worked with people from around the world, and they are so symbolic, especially the people from Mexico. They're so symbolic in their thinking and everything, and they're already almost there.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So I think
I have a young client from Mexico. She's Mayan, and she is like the goddess in terms of she channels energy, and she's channeling past lives of herself, and it's very easy for her. And she's quite rational. She's a science teacher in Doha. She's left Mexico and gone across the world, and but she has that nice balance, because it's not about letting the right brain take over, because then that's just like the left brain taking over.
Right.
It's about the balance.
I wasn't articulating myself very well. It's more of the imaginal world that you were talking about. The Mexican people that I knew, they were embodying that and living that. And people from Algeria, they were like really living in that way, where I think Americans are struggling to get to that point, maybe.
I think so. I think you're totally right. Did you see that movie Coco about the Day of the Dead and the little boy who goes down and tries to find his father in the underworld? I mean, other cultures are so rich because they are more balanced. That's why I keep saying we are the most industrialized left brain culture there is.
Yeah, but what I've heard from other people talk about America, they say, "Oh, America, you're going to make mistakes. We've been there. You're only 250 years old. Whatever. We got your back." Like I heard people telling me as American, you're going to stumble and fall, but you pick yourself up. It's almost like they put up with us, and we know we're going to get through this time. And I felt so endearing, from people that I know from Algeria or something, that they felt like, well, you're young, you're a young country. You're going to
you're like a bunch of teenagers. Definitely.
Yeah. I hope they're right. Linda, you had something you were coming up with here? So you had epiphany?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You said you had an epiphany?
Yeah, I mean, when Cathy and Suzanne were talking about the left brain, right brain thing, that's what's wrong with American education. It's almost exclusively left brained, and if there is any right brainness going on, it gets it gets isolated into art classes. Like you can do art in an art class, but then there's no left brain interaction with that. And then you're over here, you're right, like in my class, we're writing things, we're learning how to do MLA, we're doing all this stuff. And it's like 100% left brain. And I just realized that has to change. And so that's like a big insight for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to change everything once I start thinking.
Have you seen Michael Moore's What Country Should We Invade Next?
That's one movie, one of these I didn't see yet.
You have to see it because he goes to all these countries and he said, okay, over here they do this. We need to bring this back to our country. And in Finland or some Scandinavian country, I started crying and I said to my friend, I want to go to school there. All of their schooling is taking from theories that Americans came up with.
The movie has the wrong title. It implies invasion. What it really means is things that we thought of, we never followed through, and these people did. He shows Italy, and everybody's saying, relax, go have a vacation. He's showing you Scandinavia, and the prisoners don't have any bars on their windows. They can walk out when they want, but they decide to stay. But there's all this progressive thinking applied, and he's going over there saying, can we bring that back to us, the creators of the idea?
Yeah, it's an excellent movie. One of the countries lets you pick where your taxes go to. I would love us to say, when I pay my tax, I want this to go to education and to the environment. I want to see how many people vote to put it in the military. Do you know? I really do. And we should. Like in Switzerland, all the people get to vote on their laws. I know it's a small country.
Seems like communism.
That's the other thing. We had to make the boogeyman somebody, and so the communists.
Well, we got enough boogeymen here. But
yeah.
I don't even want to watch his next election. I'm so afeared. I'm scared of watching another one. We just got through the last one.
Well, we got to do it differently. And the kids will. I think that the young people, it might take 10 or 12 years, but they will create the kind of America that we all thought that the founding fathers meant.
Yeah, well, the Pluto and Cancer generation, it really made an indelible print on this country.
Yeah.
That stood for so long and is still standing, perhaps because we're Cancerian. But now, as we get through all this wrap-up of all this Capricorn stuff, it's going to be so welcome to get into all the Aquarius stuff.
Right.
And the age of Aquarius, too.
I was thinking, I read Nancy Pelosi was saying, oh, we're not going to go with the, progressive part of the party. And I wanted to say to her, that's because you're pandering to old people. Mm-hmm. If you would pander to the young people, they would actually vote.
Right.
Do you know? If we said, you're the people who have to deal with the world that we have really messed up, so we're going to give you what you want, the Democrats would win.
Her time is ending. She has 4 planets in Taurus, and she's in Aries. She got a moon in Scorpio. She's been ballsy, and she's been tough, but I think her time is coming to an end, and these young people have the answers because...
Right. But you see, the politicians...
It's not working.
But the politicians are still counting on the older people to be the voters because the young people haven't been. But the young people will vote if there's something to vote for. And if we could get some of these people out there and get our musicians out there singing it up, we would have a lot of people voting. And I'm a dictator. I think we should charge people money if they don't vote. You don't vote? Give me $500. Really, it's just in law that we have to vote. We're a democracy. Go and vote. You vote for Dancing with the Stars. Go and vote for the government.
Dancing with the politicians.
I know, but the thing is, if we charge money, people would vote.
We are the land of the free.
Yeah, and the home of the brave.
Anybody else got a dream question? We're running down.
Anybody else? Yeah, my nose is starting to get stuffed.
Come on, Linda.
Okay, well, I would just say to you, it's worthwhile paying attention to your dreams. Keep a dream notebook. Don't put it on sticky paper. People would come to me sometimes with their dreams on those little yellow sticky things, and I would go, no, you have to honor your dreams. It's messages from your soul. Get a dream notebook. Turn off the TV or the computer at least a half hour before you go to bed. Do not sleep with the TV in your bedroom if you can help it. Shut down the computer ahead of time. Do a little breathing. Write down your day. If you have a question about your life, write it down. Ask for it. And as soon as you wake up, don't even lift your head up. Start writing or tape record it. If you get up for the bathroom, mumble what your dream was and then write it down quickly. But you can always fill it in the next day. But it's so worthwhile. It is so worthwhile. And it adds such a depth to your life.
Well, thank you, because I think I'm about ready to get my little dream notebook started and put it next to the bed.
Good.
Cathy, thank you so much for being on here, part 2. You'll probably be on it here again with us, part 3. Who knows?
Okay. Well, the goddess works in 3, so we'll see.
Well, you've been a perfect addition, and we really thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Coming on tonight, and we'll talk with you soon, and stay in touch.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all, ladies, for listening. There's a guy named Ray, but I don't see him. And so thank you all for having me. I so appreciate it.
So
Good night.
Your YouTube tomorrow. Thanks, all the YouTubers. Good night.